Thank you. Good evening, councillors, and welcome to this meeting of the Planning Committee, which has been undertaken virtually in accordance with the recently enacted government regulations during the current coronavirus pandemic. Before we start the meeting, can I please remind all members of the following? Please ensure that you mute your microphones when not speaking. Please remain focused on the topic being discussed. Please try to avoid repeating points that have already been made. And please avoid interrupting other councillors and respect the position of the chair. I will advise that councillors will be roll called to speak in order by Mark Devlin in the same alphabetical order for each item, and I shall come last on the list. The method of voting will be done in the same manner by the name roll call by Democratic Services. Please remember that this meeting is still being broadcast in the normal way via Facebook Live, so members of the public can still hear what is being said and decided upon. With these matters in mind, can I call on Mark Devlin to do a roll call of all the councillors and officers to ascertain who is in attendance?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Lyons?
Yes.
Councillor Williams?
Yes.
Councillor Bialik?
Yes.
Councillor Branston? Councillor Fole? Councillor Fole? Councillor Gussain?
Present.
Councillor Harvey?
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Henson?
Present.
Councillor Mitchell?
Here.
Thank you. Councillor Morse?
Present.
Councillor Sheldon?
Yep, here.
Councillor Sutton?
Yes, present.
Councillor Sparks?
Yes, present.
We also have Councillor Wood and Oliver in attendance as well. Officers, Director Bindu Arjun?
Present.
Principal Project Manager Matt Diamond?
Present.
Principal Project Manager Paul Jeffrey?
Present.
Project Manager Joran Molin?
Present.
Project Officer Keegan Faraday? Democratic Services Officer Mark Devin, myself, and Democratic Services Officer Howard Bassett.
Present.
Yeah. I can confirm that we are quorate, Chair.
Councillor Fole is present.
Oh, thank you.
Have we ascertained what's happened to Councillor Branston and Hussain?
Chair, Councillor Gussain was present, so it's just Councillor Branston we haven't heard from.
No, I'm present.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Branston. Thank you, members. The first item on the agenda this evening is apologies. Do we have any apologies?
No apologies received, Chair.
Thank you. The next item of business is the minutes of the planning meeting held on the 16th of March 2020. Are members happy to approve these minutes as a correct record of the proceedings? This will be done by another roll call by Mark Devlin.
Thank you, Chair. To Councillor Bialik?
Yes.
Councillor Branston? Councillor Branston?
Yes.
Councillor Fole?
Yes.
Councillor Gussain?
Yes.
Councillor Harvey?
Yes.
Councillor Mrs Henson?
Yes.
Councillor Mitchell?
Approve.
Thank you. Councillor Morse?
Happy to approve.
I've heard of.
Councillor Sheldon?
Yep, happy to approve.
Councillor Sparks?
Yes, happy to approve.
Councillor Sutton,
Approve.
Councillor Williams,
Yes.
Councillor Lyons.
Yes.
So that's a unanimous approval to approve the minutes.
Which I will sign at the appropriate time. The next item on the agenda is item 3, declarations of interest. If any members have any disclosable pecuniary interests that relate to the business on the agenda have not already included these in the register of interest to declare them, can you declare them before the discussion takes place on the item? The next item of business is item 4, Local Government Access to Information Act 1985, for the exclusion of the press and public. There are no part 2 items on the agenda. We now go on to item 5, the night shelter at Magdalen Street, and it will be presented by Joran, but I understand that Councillor Morse wishes to make a statement on this matter. Councillor Morse.
Oh no, it hasn't got this in it.
Thank you, Chair.
So
given my role as a member of the
this morning,
as the lead member for homelessness, I've been very public with my opinions on this matter, and as such, I feel that I may have predetermined the application, and for the sake of propriety, will remove myself from this item and not vote.
Thank you, Councillor Morse. So can I ask now that Joran makes the presentation? Thank you.
Okay, this is the application 20/0194/ECC, the night shelter at Magdalen Street. As the application says, this is an amendment of a previous application for a winter night shelter, reference 18/10/31 ECC, and it's in this therefore in the same location. As you can see at the night shelter, at the location plan in red. Two objections were received, and mainly was with regard to if it was the right location for this extended use, with regard to noise, disturbance and nuisance, overlooking and congregation outside the shelter, unsafe environment, antisocial behavior, litter. The objectors also wanted conditions regarding noise level, management plan, CCTV, window treatment, and the prohibition of use of terrace and lighting. As you can see this on the aerial view, it sits south of Magdalen Street, to the east of the car park and to the west of Hotel de Vin, and north of this residential development. It's the same site layout as previous granted application. And new changes is proposed for the elevations. New changes proposed to floor plans either. So we're coming to the principal changes between the granted application 18/10/31 ECC and this application 200194 ECC. So what is happening here is that it's going from a winter night shelter to an all-year night shelter. And during the period, October to April, the night shelter has 24 beds. That is not going to change. But during April to October, it's going to have a reduced number of beds. The community facility will be the same. The management plan has also, in the light of the COVID-19, added this response. During the consultation period, the government introduced, in response to COVID-19, an emergency legislation with new permitted development rights that allow for changes similar to what is outlined in the management plan. So the recommendation is to approve with conditions. And the first is the time, and the second is to compliance with details. And the third is to regard to the management plans, which will handle a lot of the concerns mentioned by the objectors. So any questions?
Thank you, Joran. There will now be a roll call for any planning committee members who have any questions of clarification only. So Mark, can you do the roll call again, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Bialik.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Branston.
No questions.
Councillor Fole.
No questions, but I don't have any visual at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Gussain.
I've got a question specifically. Are the numbers for summer and winter, are these static, or are they possible to change? i.e. 14 in the summer months and 28 in the winter. Are they just, these are the limits and no more? Is that within the recommendation?
That is even the recommendation of the management plan. To be able to alter anything of these, we have to have a new management plan. So these kind of exact numbers of the beds will be regulated through the management plan. So therefore also can handle any changes. There will also be that what we said, the emergency possibility if something similar to COVID-19 will happen and the government is saying that we need to use this for emergency.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gussain. Councillor Harvey.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Henson.
Yes, I have several. You've just talked about management plan, and yet you have a supporting information on page 32, information supplied by applicant, a management plan. You've got it said on one, and then you've just said you haven't got a management plan presented to us. So which is it? The other thing I'd like to ask is page 33 on the lower two paragraphs where it says crime, fear and material planning. In principle, the police have no objections in principle. What does that mean? And the other thing is because of the it's in the middle, well, it's an island really, that area where it's noisy. What about fire? Is there any reports on the fire brigade on that? Objections from the fire brigade? Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Carry on, Helen.
Yes. There are no comments or representations for any statutory consultees with regard to this application. They have chosen not to comment on it, and they are much of the comments about, for instance, from the fire brigade or what has been done when this become a night shelter has been dealt in the previous application. So this is an extension of the time, and therefore we haven't received any comments from the statutory consultees. Can you repeat any other questions? Because
management plan.
It's difficult to understand.
It's the management plan. You were mentioning to the previous councillors that there were no management plan, but then you have already on 32 suggested there is a supplied by applicant management plan. So you either got it or you haven't got it.
It is a management plan submitted with the application, and that was also amended for later on with regard to COVID-19. So that was submitted with the application, and the application is taken with that management plan in consideration, and therefore also condition 3 has conditioned that the occupation should be managed in accordance with the hereby approved a management plan. That's the number of the management plan that was submitted with the application. As you can see on the screen.
I'm not on screen, I'm on phone.
So just to confirm for Councillor Yolanda Henson's benefit, there is a management plan that's been submitted with the application, and it was further refined in the light of the government guidance we received around COVID-19. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henson. Councillor Mitchell?
No questions.
Thank you. Councillor Sheldon?
No questions.
Thank you. Councillor Sparks?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sutton?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Williams?
No questions.
Thank you. Councillor Lyons?
I have no questions either.
Thank you, Chair.
We now have a member of the public speaking on the application. Can I ask if Nuala O'Farrell, who is speaking against the application, is here available, please? And you have 3 minutes to speak on the item, after which an alarm, it's not a very loud alarm, will sound to show you your time is up. So if you'd like to speak when you're comfortable now.
Good evening, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, great, thanks. Okay. Homelessness is a problem, but one that obviously can be solved if it's prioritised and authorities are motivated enough, as we've seen during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I hope the vulnerable and traumatised who are now being housed will not be put back on the streets when lockdown is over. Society does have a role in looking after the weakest at their most vulnerable. However, this should be a two-way street, and the shelter should be a good neighbour. However, the management scheme as set out in the winter night shelter application is not being followed. Therefore, if this application is allowed, any issues will only proliferate to a year-round problem. The planning officer's recommendation looks at the application from the shelter and the council's point of view. But let me give you a resident's opinion. The antisocial behaviour and noise is continuous throughout winter. Almost daily, the shelter's customers congregate at the entrance before opening hours with shouting, arguments, foul language, etc. And this is before the late arrivals are denied access and therefore go ballistic. These late arrivals then end up sleeping rough outside, often with intermittent diatribes and shouting through the night. There are many physical altercations. Police are called out at least once, if not twice a week, and this is only for cases where disputes escalate and the staff are unable to deal with them. The staff have an incredibly difficult job and deal with many more loud and physical altercations than police are called to. The antisocial behaviour is difficult to overlook in winter, but is at least temporary. In spring and summer, when local residents have windows and doors open and are looking to use their gardens and patios, including the Hotel du Van, the noise and antisocial behaviour will make lives miserable. The windows in the shelter would also be open in spring and summer, meaning further noise disturbance for the local community. For example, last night there were 30 minutes of loud retching coming from the bathroom. To include additional points fellow residents have raised, there should be CCTV both outside and inside the property. Window treatments should block out internal activity, e.g. when requested staff put up a curtain in the bathroom, but it's incredibly flimsy. The terrace on the first floor should remain unused and the excessive lighting over this terrace should be disabled. Under COVID-19, will the shelter be applying social distancing rules? The residents of the shelter can book in early and then come and go as they please into town. So they can book in sober and then turn up hours later, and have altercations. Have the hours been increased, the nighttime hours? I think lock-in used to be from 8 or 9 o'clock. The current management scheme hasn't been adhered to, so what hope is there that any further scheme will be any different? In conclusion, as the management scheme has not protected the local community, it should not be allowed. Local residents have put up with the issues of antisocial behaviour, noise pollution, litter, etc. on the understanding it's temporary and therefore have not complained. Expecting residents to deal with these issues throughout the year when they'll be amplified in spring and summer is unrealistic and unfair. The end.
Thank you very much. Are you happy to take any questions that members might have?
Of course.
Right. Mark, can we have a roll call of any members who want to ask questions, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Bialik?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Branston?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fole? Councillor Fole?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gassane?
No, thank you.
Councillor Harvey?
No, thank you.
Councillor Mrs Henson?
Yes. Can I ask the Speaker, was the police called, if that was the problem, was the police called and were they logged and how many logs were there?
When I heard of this meeting, I did ask under the Freedom of Information Act for information from the police, but they haven't got back to me. I've never called the police because, as I say, the residents, knowing it's temporary, and important through the winter, we can put up with that because windows are closed, but I've never called the police, but they're there regularly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henson. Councillor Mitchell?
No questions.
Councillor Sheldon?
No questions.
Thank you. Councillor Sparks?
No questions.
Thank you. Councillor Sutton?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Williams?
No questions.
Thank you. And Councillor Lyons?
No questions.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, members, and thank you for speaking, Mrs O'Farrell.
Thank you.
The application is now open for debate by members, so we're back to another roll call for members wishing to speak on this one. And if after everybody has spoken there are further comments members wish to add, they should indicate via messenger, and Mark will tell me who these are. And the members who we cannot go with, who can't speak via chat, I will ask them individually at the appropriate time. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Bialik?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just very briefly to say that I will be voting in support of the recommendations, and I heard what a local resident has said, and I do not dismiss that lightly, other than to say that those issues, I think we need to ensure that the police, one, respond to the lady concerned, and two, are aware, and I feel sure our staff will deal with these situations best they can, taking into account what the local residents have just said. But I really do believe that we should be supporting this recommendation to support homeless people in Exeter. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bialik. Councillor Branston?
No, other than fully supporting what Councillor Bialik said.
Thank you. Councillor Fole?
Again,
Councillor Fole?
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Again, fully support the observations made by Councillor Bialik and Councillor Branston.
Thank you. Councillor Gassane?
Same. I support the recommendation made by Councillor Bialik and others, and I think maybe a tighter, before we start complaining about things, we have to log them properly to see exactly when and where these things are happening, rather than just hearsay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Henson?
Support this application, but clearly it's got to be under the tighten up on the management plan, because this is, I was most impressed when I went down myself and as Deputy Lord Mayor to this community. But what we can't have is in a residential area which is now become an upper part of the city, and two prominent hotels, and also the Bishop's Court there, which is over 55s, senior members. We can't have people, sort of being disturbed. I think management plan must be a little bit more tighter than it clearly has been, and it's not fair on residents. But we also must make sure that this is not a stain on the city. We're here to encourage people to live in the city, and we must take both sides on call. But I certainly will be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henson. Councillor Mitchell?
I, as others, will be supporting this recommendation. My only concern is in regard to the issues raised in relation to the management plan, and I would hope that all agencies, voluntary and within the local authority sector, are able to put in the resources required to ensure that there is harmony between both this centre and the local residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Councillor Sheldon?
Yes, thank you. I do want to just make some comments that haven't been made. I will be voting in favour. I understand the concerns that have been raised, and I think it's not a question of the quality of the management plan, but making sure that it's actually fully implemented. And that's something outside planning, but something the council does need to look at. Comments have been made about the fact that we don't want to stain on the city and how it's really important. There'll be more of a stain on the city if we don't provide a facility like this, and up to 14 people are sleeping on the streets at night who don't need to be. And that's the main reason I'll be supporting this.
Thank you, Councillor Sheldon. Councillor Sparks?
Hi. It seems to me that not only does this need to be enforced properly, but I'm slightly concerned that we've only got room for 14 during the summer months, surely if there's a need, there should be more capacity. I know that's an adjustment of the management plan, but I think that maybe needs to be looked at to ensure that we have less people sleeping on the streets, but at the same time we have a strong management plan in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sutton?
I don't have anything to add that hasn't already been said, thank you, but I am in support of this application.
Thank you. Councillor Williams?
I will also be supporting this application. I would like to thank Ms O'Farrell, though, for her making her points very clearly and drawing our attention to some issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lyons?
Right, my mic. Sorry about that. My mic would not unmute. I haven't got anything further to add. Has any other member indicated that they want to speak a second time on this item?
No further indications on the instant messenger.
So can I assume that nobody else wants to speak on this item? In that case, we will go to the vote on this. I need somebody who will propose this one, that we approve as according to the officer's recommendations. Can I have
Councillor Williams approve.
And can I have a seconder, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Sutton, I'm happy to second the recommendation.
Thank you. So it's Councillor Williams to nominate, Councillor Sutton to second. Can we go to the recommendation and vote, please? So can you please say if you're voting for, against or abstaining? Mark, can you read out the names yet again? Have we lost member services? Mark, are you there?
I can't hear anything.
Howard, are you there?
Oh, Lord.
So can I check if members can hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, can hear you, but Bindu.
Okay, so I'll try and do the roll call. So if members can agree whether they're for, against or abstaining, please bear with me a moment. So Councillor Phil Bialik.
For.
Thank you. I'm just going to get to the other list of members. Bear with me for a second, please. Councillor Amal Hussain.
Ms. Councillor Branston.
For.
I'm just doing it in the order I can, Chair, if that's okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. So Councillor Hussain. Okay, so we haven't heard, so I'll come back to Councillor Hussain at the end. Councillor Harvey.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Keith Sparks. Councillor Michael Mitchell.
We're down.
Councillor Rachel Sutton. Councillor Richard Branston.
For.
Councillor Ruth Williams. For.
Hello, members. I think we may be all back again now. Can I ask for somebody to propose that we defer the rest of the items on the agenda to another date because of the problems that we're all having with the internet.
Councillor Bialik, I move, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bialik. Have I got a seconder for this?
Councillor Williams, I second.
Thank you. Can I now have a roll call of all members so we know who's here, so that we can ascertain that we're all aware of what's happening? And the proposal is that we reconvene the meeting for the same time on Monday of next week. So Mark, if you're there, or Bindu, can you do a roll call, please?
I've just got back in, Chair.
So Mark, for your benefit, we're going through all members and asking them to vote for or against or abstain to the proposal that we suspend the meeting until next week because some of the technological problems we're having with our connection, our internet connection. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Bindu. Could I start there for Councillor Bialik?
Agreed.
Councillor Branston? She may not be on. Councillor Fole?
Agreed.
Councillor Gussain? Councillor Harvey?
Let's keep going, Mark.
Have we lost?
I think we've lost Mark. So
we've lost.
Okay, so I'm going to try and pick it up if I can, with other members are still here. And excuse me, because I may repeat some of what Mark's already said, because I'm working in a different order. So I know that I heard Councillor Bialik agree. Can I ask Councillor Gussain, if you're online, can you express if you're happy to agree to suspending the meeting? Councillor Harvey? Councillor Sparks?
Yes, agreed. Thank you.
Councillor Michael Mitchell?
In favour.
Councillor Rachel Sutton? Councillor Richard Branston? Councillor Ruth Williams? Agreed. Councillor Yolanda Henson?
Agreed.
Councillor Greg Sheldon?
Agreed.
Councillor Rachel Lyons?
Agreed.
Councillor Dave Harvey?
I'm assuming, I've only just got back in, but I'm assuming you're asking for an adjournment, in which case
Yes,
the answer is most certainly.
Thank you. Councillor Fole?
Agreed.
Thank you. So, Chair, the majority of members agreed to the proposition to suspend the meeting.
Councillor Morse.
Sorry, Councillor Morse.
As well. I'd agree as well.
I agreed as well. Councillor Branston.
Thank you, Councillor Branston.
Thank
Chair,
you.
I hand back over to you to close the meeting.
I think it's Councillor Gussain that we haven't heard from, so I think she's the only one now. So thank you, members. I'm sorry we have to close this meeting, but we will reconvene it on Monday of next week at 5:30. Thank you for attending this evening.